So I see here an attitude expressed by Utaka and by Roberto that says, how can I be an American? I can't. And so I won't. I'm going to cling to my heritage. Is this clinging the problem? Is this belief that you cannot become American the problem? For years I've said, why do these guys have such a problem being a color? Why can't they just be individuals and go out and make a place for themselves? And I hear you saying that we whites don't allow that, that we keep you down. Why aren't we just humans? I mean, why aren't we just brothers?
There's a certain sort of silent consciousness about what it means to be American that I sense coming from white folks that I'd like to talk about. Before I do that, I'd like to say one more thing that's hard about talking about racism, and that is that people of color are spilling their guts and doing education to white people. Let me explain to you how you've got this wrong. Let me explain to you how you've got that wrong. Let me explain, and then we get cross-examined, and it's like, well, maybe your problem is blah, 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 blah. And it's always, racism gets looked at as a person of color's problem, and it's not. We're like on the receiving end of the problem, but we're not the problem. I walk in a world where black people, where Latinos, where Asians, where Arabs, all these different people are experienced as problem people, and that, well, we're going to deal with the person of color problem, when in fact racism is essentially a white problem. And that for you to understand what racism is about, you're going to be so uncomfortable. You're going to be so different from who you see yourself to be now that, there's just no way for you to get it from where you're sitting. And I'm not saying that you could never get it. I mean that you need to step outside of your skin and step outside of what seems really comfortable and familiar to you, and launch out into some real, for you, unknown territory. And you haven't gone out there like you haven't, gotten in proximity to black people, as you say, because you don't have to. And that's part of what it means to be American, to me, is to have all these things that you can do if you want to, that you don't have to do if you don't want to do. And there's a way in which American and white and human become synonyms. That why can't we just treat each other as human beings? To me, when I hear it from a white person, it means, why can't we all just pretend to be white people? I'll pretend you're a white person, and then you can pretend to be white. Why don't you eat what I eat? Why don't you drink what I drink? Why don't you think like I think? Why don't you feel like I feel? God damn it, I'm so sick and goddamn tired of hearing about that. I'm sick of that. That's what it means to be human being to me. That's what it means to be white. That's what it means to be American. Why don't you come the hell over here? That's what I hear every goddamn day. And you know that I can't come over there. You know that this skin, and that this hair, and that this way that I talk, and that I think and I feel will never, ever get included, because I'm unpalatable to this goddamn nation. I'm unpalatable. You cannot swallow me. You cannot taste me. You cannot feel me, because you don't want to. You think that you can survive without me, but you can't, man. You think that, hey, it'll all be fine when we just treat each other like human beings. And what that says to me is, don't be yourself. Be like me. Keep me comfortable. Connect where I'm ready to connect. Come out to my place. Or maybe I'll come down and get some artifacts from your place. That is bullshit. When you say that your ethnicity is American, there is no American ethnicity. You had to throw away your ethnicity to become American. That's what it means. That's what it means. You give up who you are to become American. And you can pretend that it's okay because you're white. When we give up who we are to become American, we know that we're dying from it. You're dying from it too, but you don't know it necessarily. Get ethnic, you know? You know, I'm not going to trust you until you're as willing to be changed and affected by my experience and transformed by my experience as I am every day by yours. I attended a school for the first time that was predominantly white, and I had white teachers. And I walked into the classroom, and there were 3 reading groups in my 5th grade classroom, and I was promptly put into the lowest reading group. And I gathered very quickly that that was because I'm of African and American descent. Then they put me into the intermediate reading group, and then they put me into the highest reading group. And, you know, I just boiled and churned through the whole process because my reading level was higher than anything they had in the classroom. I'm always dealing with you. I'm always dealing with you. You don't deal with him. You don't deal with me. Maybe you had an opportunity to deal with some Latino people. Well, we always deal with you, baby. Always. Every day. And the ride up here, it's like, oh, man, where are we now? Oh, God. I hate being out of the city because I know who's out here. You all. Or at least I know who's in charge. Even if there's other people out here, I know who's in charge. And I don't know anywhere where I can find some safety that I can rely upon when I'm out here. You know, I'm real glad I got to the house before sundown.
Yeah. This is like shark-infested waters.
Really?
Yes, definitely. Yes. It doesn't have to be said. It can be felt. It's intuitive. It's hard to explain to somebody who doesn't have to go through it. But, you know, I've traveled down south. And, you know, just that feeling, like you said, you get, you know, drive through Kentucky and Tennessee and see the Appalachian Mountains up ahead of you. And know you want to get through those mountains so fast without stopping for anything because you don't know if you'll get out.
What I see from white people generally is they don't talk about themselves as white people. They talk about themselves as human beings, as if it means the same thing. Now, what I want to know is what it means to be white. Not what it means to be a human being, because we already know that you're a human being, and we can already relate to the universal human experience. What is the white experience? When I look at you manifesting your white experience, I also see you not naming it. I see you wanted to blur the distinctions between just being a person and also most particularly being a white person and what that means. And I think that part of what it means to be white is it means never having to say you're sorry, but it also means never having to admit that to be white means something different than to be a person of color. And that there is an experience that you have that is very different from what the experience of people of color is.
I'm sure that there were many times that I felt that people of color were being mistreated. Probably when I was in my late teens, going down to basically black areas and seeing the cops around a lot. We'd go down there and dance and see the police around. But I don't think there was a lot of awareness. It was more just a numbness. It doesn't happen to me. It doesn't happen in my area. And so, you know, that's somebody else's problem.
I never consider myself, as you do, a part of an ethnic group. I think that's what you're looking for, and you're not going to find that among us because we don't look at ourselves as an ethnic group.
Do you know that that means something?
I don't know what it means. I mean,
I'm telling you that that means something.
I'm trying to answer your question, Victor, and as you were asking that question, I'm saying, well, gosh, I never considered myself part of a white group.
I just wonder, doesn't it seem kind of deep to you that you don't have an answer to that question? Do you have any notion that the fact that you have no answer to that could actually be a source of meaning, experience, or knowledge?
The opposite is how I feel about you, Victor, that you have no comprehension that the world is open to you. You think that the white man is a block and a dam to your progress. It is not. I think you put up that dam and that block yourself in your regard to the white man.
See, I think that's one of the major problems with racism. I think he did answer the question.
Yeah.
As a white man, He doesn't have to think about his position in life, his place in the world. The history books tell him, as they are written, that this world is his. He doesn't have to think about, where he goes, what he does. He doesn't have to think like a white person. The way the world has been set up, America in particular, white is human.
White is a human being.
Right. That's what a human being is. So he doesn't have to worry about how do I think like a white person. That does I don't know, but I would assume that doesn't enter a white person's mind because they don't have to deal with that from day one. They step into a world that is theirs.
Yeah.
So he has.
It's a good question.
It's an excellent question.
I need to respond to your saying that that I create my own racial predicament by my thinking, my attitudes.
You block your progress
I block my own progress.
by allowing your attitude toward the white man to limit you.
I think the police limit me. I think that white supremacy has placed limitations on where I can go and what I can do, but I don't think that I cause my own predicament under white supremacy. And by white supremacy, I don't mean neo-Nazis, and I don't mean Klan, because I'm terrified of those people on an interpersonal basis. Institutionally, not terribly much, because most of the lethal, toxic, deadly racism that African American people experience and that other people of color experience in this country does not come from them. It comes from moral, fair-minded people who believe that they are lovers of justice, churchgoers, people who experience themselves as decent and actually very nice folk. And it is there that I find my fear. Back to the question of what it means to be white. I think what it means to be white, in part, is that you have the privilege of blaming people of color for their own victimization under white supremacy. I've heard you say that to me. I've heard you say that to him. I've heard you say that to him. I've heard you say it to him. I've heard you say it to every person of color in the room who challenged your perception of yourself in the world. That is part of what it means to be white.
Maybe that's part of the answer, that we feel that the field is wide open and each man can stand on his own.
No. Each man does not stand on his own. Some men stand on other men and other women. Light-skinned men. Men from Europe stand on the heads and the parts of men and women and children of color. That is, and of course, you also stand on the heads of white women. But no, it's not a question of every man standing on his own ground. All of the ground, damn near, of this planet has been taken from almost all of the people of color on this planet. Australia was a black continent. Africa was a black continent. And if the people themselves were not taken from Africa, then everything of value was taken from Africa, to the extent that that was possible. North America was a red continent. South America was a red continent. You are not standing on your own ground. You're standing on red ground. And that's what it means to be white. To say that you're standing on your own ground and standing on somebody else's. And then mystify the whole process so it seems like you're not doing that.
Growing up, I picked up stereotypes that blacks were lazy, that they were violent, that they were dangerous. I mean, there is a tape in the back of my head that plays back all the time. But there's another tape that I've developed and also that says, this isn't true.
When I see Asian people being praised for intelligence and black people invalidated for being stupid, I feel bitter about it. Because I know I'm very smart. I've always been very smart. And, and it hurts me to see that acknowledgement given up to other people when it's taken away from me. And all the people in my community, with very few exceptions, where I grew up, worked very, very hard. My mother worked hard. My grandmother worked hard. My aunts and uncles worked hard. They worked themselves to death. and they pulled on their bootstraps, and those suckers just tore off, and they didn't get no place.
You leave home every day, your parents instill at you that you're a good person, you know, you're a moral person. Yet when you go out into the world, you know, just because of the color of your skin, people avoid you. They look at you as if you're a potential killer. They don't think you're as smart as they are. You watch the news. Who do you see being taken away in handcuffs all the time? It's somebody that looks like you, somebody that could be you. You're always under suspicion, so at times you do wonder if it is you.
In my father's restaurant, it was, you know, make sure we don't have blacks come into our restaurant because it'll mean that white people won't come into our restaurant. And you know, Asian, you know, white people don't want blacks in the restaurant. But all that time, the whites were really encouraging that without knowing it. And that's why when I hear about the black and the Asian community, I feel so sad about that because I think that there's a way to which we've been really used to put down black people. You know, especially in the LA riots, you know, the poor little Korean grocer. If only the blacks could work as hard as us with such great family values, you know, look what they get. Then the black people beat them up, burn down their stores. You know, and the fact of it was we were both being exploited. We've been both taught to be really scared of each other.
I have allowed myself to feel in my soul, in my heart, what other men are experiencing, and that has caused me to take down the walls and barriers that my mind has placed before me regarding men of color. And I have found that they are good men and that I can love them. This will probably be difficult for me, but so you understand, I was raised by a father who was very much opinionated and racist, I would say. Oh, my father would always tell jokes about the colored people that would put them down or would demonstrate to me that they were a inferior group of people. The way he would refer to them, calling them niggers, implanted in me that they were an undesirable people. And he demanded much of his children to the point where if we didn't obey, we were physically abused by his boot or by a big mean strap. I learned to anticipate what he wanted so that I could do it without ever incurring his abuse. And in doing so, I learned to protect myself from outside harm or any emotions that would cause me anguish or disturb me. And I carried all of this into a pattern of working to avoid dealing with reality, I guess I would say. And all my life, that's where I've been. I work hard, I work long hours, and I keep myself content in my work, and I'm away from the pain and the strife of the real world. And I know when you tell me your experiences, I tend to minimize them so that I don't have to deal with them. But it's not that I don't want to, and it's not that I don't feel your anguish and pain as people of color. And I'm deeply hurt that you would consider my race as the oppressor, because certainly I have never thought myself that way. And that disturbs me to know that you consider me and my color that way. Please accept whatever I can do or say to you to lay to you the feeling that some of us white men really are not aware that we are such a problem to you. And when we say to you, well, just can't you be like us, we don't really understand the differences between you and us.
I'm really sorry that what has happened to you as a child being abused happened to you. that should never, you didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve any of that. And I appreciate you sharing with me how you survived that and how that survival is with you today, and how hearing us and hearing my story, how your survival, how that affects how you hear me and what you hear and what you do with it. That's really important for me to know how you've survived. And as a white man, to know how you dealt with things, to know how you deal with things when they come your way. That's what Victor was asking, I think, and asking, what does it mean to be white? What is it like to be white? And I appreciate you for exploring that and for getting in touch with what it means to be white. And I appreciate your survival. I'm glad you made it.
My friends, there is one aspect of slavery so foul, so utterly depraved that even we on this platform have been loath to raise its specter. I must admit to you my shame to stand before you with rising indignation. A decent Christian woman addressing an audience of her own kind, forced to address publicly a sin so vile, so vicious and degenerate. The South's hateful system depends on the perpetuation of its free labor force. So where, ladies and gentlemen, do these new slaves come from? When the aged and infirmed are worked to death, or beaten to death? Why, they come from slavery itself. For the true crop of a southern plantation is a human crop. Yes, my friends, the plantations of the South are nothing more than black breeding farms.
She's an offense to all the women in the abolitionist movement.
Giant bordellos owned and operated by a degenerate aristocracy. Men who in their lust force their animal passions on the defenseless bodies of the women and children they hold prisoner. God in his heaven cries out against these crazed satyrs, and every upright human heart cries out in moral outrage, no! 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 No!
Ori, you know she doesn't speak for all of us. No, not for you. Everyone else here she does.
Here, sir. You must believe how Mr. Kelly is speaking.
I am afraid, sir, I have a train to catch to South Carolina. I have some blacks to breed.